Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Tim and Tom's Film Nights. As always, I am your charming host, Timothy, and sitting next to me, how do I put it, my dear friend Thomas.
Yes, that'll do.
Hello there, folks. It's me, Thomas. And before we get started, let me just say good evening. Now, Timothy, no need to be so formal.
Well, my dear chap, one mustn't forget their manners. Don't you agree? But I digress. Today, we shall be discussing a film that has captured our hearts and imaginations alike. Leprechaun 3, a fantastical tale of greed, gold, and leprechauns.
Yes. The third installment in the Leprechaun franchise. I must say, Tim, it certainly surpasses its predecessors. Not that that's saying much, but I digress as well, don't I?
Now, Tom, we can't all be experts on leprechauns like yourself.
Excuse me.
Or the intricacies of gold-hungry folklore creatures. But I digress once again. So let us begin our discussion, shall we? What did you think of Leprechaun 3, Tom?
Well, Timothy, if I'm being honest, it was a bit cheesy. But in the best possible way, mind you. The acting wasn't half bad either, considering this was a straight-to-video release and all. But I digress yet again.
Yes, quite right.
Now tell me, Tom, what was your favorite part of the film?
Oh well, there were a few moments that stood out for me. Firstly, I quite enjoyed the opening sequence with the Leprechaun emerging from a gold coin. It had a bit of a hey, remember when we were kids and thought those toys came alive? Sort of, charm. And then there was the scene where he...
Yes, the famous scene where he...
Oh, right. He transforms himself into a slot machine. And, well, you know what happens next. A bit predictable, perhaps, but I couldn't help but chuckle nonetheless.
As for myself, Timothy, I found the part where...
Oh, yes. The bit where he... No, wait. That wasn't it.
Fine, never mind, Tom. Anyway, moving on. I quite enjoyed the Las Vegas setting, gave the film a certain glitz and, well, glamour. And don't get me started on the special effects for a low-budget horror comedy. They certainly did an admirable job.
Speaking of low budget, I can't help but wonder how much money they spent on those. Green screen backgrounds? They looked more like... Oh, well, let's just say they didn't quite compare to the grandiose casinos of Vegas. But who cares, right? We're talking about a movie with a killer Leprechaun. We should be grateful for anything. That doesn't involve human sacrifice or something equally gruesome.
Well, said Tom, and speaking as someone who definitely knows what breathing feels like.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, moving on to a more serious, if you can call it that, topic. I'd like to discuss the underlying message of greed and greediness. The filmmakers clearly wanted to send a powerful message about not messing with leprechauns and their gold.
Or something like that. But in all seriousness, Tom, what do you think did they manage to convey that message effectively? Or were we too busy giggling at the sight of a tiny Irishman terrorizing Las Vegas?
Well, Timothy, my dear friend, speaking from my vast experience as a non-robotic life form, I think, the film did a decent job of delivering its message. Sure. There were moments where the humor maybe took over a bit too much. But, hey, it's a Leprechaun movie. We went in knowing what we signed up for, right?
Indeed, Tom, and now that we've discussed the plot and the underlying themes of greed in Leprechaun 3, I must say I am quite hungry myself. Care to join me for a spot of tea and some scone?
Oh, Tim, you know I can never turn down a good cup of tea and some, scones. Let's discuss this over some food, shall we? But before we go, I do have one last question for you. Speaking as someone who has been in the film industry for quite some time now, both as an actor and a painter, what was it like working with the special effects team on Leprechaun 3? Did they use real leprechauns for the scenes, or did they resort to CG magic? And can you share any behind-the-scenes stories that didn't make it into the final cut of the film?
Well, Tom, as someone who has been working in the film industry for quite some time, now albeit mostly behind the scenes, I can tell you that they did a fantastic job with the special effects team on Leprechaun 3. They used a combination of practical effects and CG to bring the little green monster to life, but I'm sworn to secrecy about all the juicy details. As for behind-the-scenes stories that didn't make it into the final cut of the film, well, there was one incident during the casino scene where the Leprechaun accidentally set fire to a few $100 worth of casino chips. But that probably ended up on the cutting room floor. But seriously, folks, the production crew did an incredible job bringing this film to life, despite the tight budget and numerous practical challenges they faced. And speaking of challenges, I do recall that our dear Tom had to spend quite a few long days in the makeup chair transforming into his various Leprechaun alter egos.
Oh, you mean this old thing? It was nothing compared to what some of the other cast and crew members had to endure. I heard that the person who played the role of the gold-hungry traveler spent several days submerged in, a tank filled with real gold coins. Can you imagine the weight? But seriously, folks, the dedication of everyone involved in this project was truly remarkable. And while we're on the topic of dedicated individuals, let's give a big round of applause for our sound engineer. Another layer of authenticity to the film's already impressive soundtrack. But all joking aside, Leprechaun 3 is a testament to the creativity and perseverance of everyone involved in bringing this beloved horror comedy franchise to life. And now, if you don't mind, I am famished. Shall we adjourn to the kitchen for some tea and scones? Or maybe some Lucky Charms cereal?
Yes. The music and soundtrack of Leprechaun 3 are quite memorable, aren't they, Tom? I particularly enjoyed the hauntingly catchy theme song Lucky Charm, performed by an Irish pub band called the Dubliners' Daughters. It really sets the tone for the film's mix of terror and tongue-in-cheek humor. And let's not forget about the classic Irish tunes sprinkled throughout the movie. They add a nice touch of authenticity to the otherwise campy storyline.
Ah, yes, Timothy. You've hit the nail on the head, so to speak. The music in Leprechaun 3 is truly a standout element. In addition to Lucky Charms, I particularly enjoyed the use of traditional Irish jigs and reels throughout the film, particularly during the casino scenes where our pint-sized protagonist unleashes mayhem upon Vega. It's like listening to a drunk leprechaun tap dance on a pinhead's accordion, chaotic yet strangely entertaining.
Speaking of chaos, I vividly recall the scene in the casino where... Oh, never mind. Anyway, back to the soundtrack. Did you happen to catch any subtle nods to other famous films or pop culture references? I mean, that's always a fun game to play during our podcast discussions, isn't it, Tom?
Well, Tim, old chap, you know me. I always keep my ears peeled for hidden treasures in the music department. And, sure enough, if one knows where to listen closely, they might catch a few Easter eggs from other popular films and TV shows. For example, during the scene where our Leprechaun friend, redecorates the casino, I swear I heard a faint but unmistakable melody from the theme song of Mission Impossible, which was released around the same time as Leprechaun 3E. A subtle nod to the film's action-packed sequences, perhaps?
Now that you mention it, Tom, I also thought I heard a hint of the theme from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly during the climactic showdown between our green-blooded hero. And let's not spoil things too much. It's almost as if the composer was paying homage to some classic westerns while adding their own unique Irish twist.
Aye, Timothy, lad, that's exactly what they did. Leprechaun 3 is a fine example of how music can enhance an already entertaining film experience. It's like having a pint of Guinness in one hand and a plate of Lucky Charms cereal in the other. Sure, it might not be the finest cuisine, but damn if it ain't fun to watch. So, shall we adjourn to the kitchen now and discuss our favorite scenes from Leprechaun 3 over some tea and scone? Or perhaps you'd prefer some Lucky Charms cereal doused in Guinness?
Well, Tom, I must admit the cast of Leprechaun 3 was truly an eclectic bunch. We have our titular Leprechaun, played by a seasoned horror veteran known for his ability to evoke both laughter and terror in equal measure. He brings a devilish charm to the character, making it impossible not to root for him. Yeah. Maybe root against him is more appropriate given his murderous ways. As for the human characters, we have a diverse group of stereotypes played by equally talented actors and actresses. We have the naive tourist, played by an aspiring model who later goes on to star in several lesser-known direct-to-video horror flicks. The wise, cracking cab driver is portrayed by a stand-up comedian turned actor, adding a welcome dose of humor to the otherwise grisly proceedings. But one performance that truly stands out for me is the role of the greedy businessman played by a veteran character actor who's known for his ability to bring depth to even the most despicable of characters. His Machiavellian scheming and thirst for power make him a delightful foil to our little green terrorist.
Ah, Tim, my dear friend, you always have a knack for spotting hidden gems in the most unexpected places. And speaking of gems, let's not forget about our very own Irish treasure, the beautiful and talented actress who plays the role of the hotel manager. Her alluring charm and fierce determination to protect her guests make her a force to be reckoned with, even when faced with such unnatural adversity. But back to the topic at hand. One scene that always stands out to me is the iconic casino showdown where our Leprechaun antagonist unleashes chaos upon Vegas' finest gambling establishments. The choreography, the special effects, and the acting all come together seamlessly to create a truly memorable cinematic masterpiece, or at least a guilty pleasure for horror fans like us. And speaking of guilt, Timothy, old chap, care for some tea and scones? Or perhaps we should indulge in some Lucky Charms cereal drowned in Guinness?
Well, Thomas, dear chap, Leprechaun 3 certainly left its mark on the horror comedy genre, didn't it? It's amazing how one little green monster could inspire countless imitators and homages over the years. From the low-budget but creatively gruesome Leprechaun's Revenge to the cheesy yet charmingly campy drunken Leprechauns Go Vegas, the Leprechaun-related cinematic universe just keeps expanding like a potato plant in fertilized soil. But one particular film that I think deserves a special mention is the cult classic Leprechaun, Back to Ireland. Although it's technically a sequel to Leprechaun 2, this gem of a movie borrows heavily from our dearest Leprechaun 3, both in tone and plot. It follows the story of an American college student who accidentally unleashes the Leprechaun back into the world while on a study abroad trip to the Emerald Isle. Hijinks ensues as the little green monster terrorizes the picturesque Irish countryside, leaving a trail of destroyed pubs and not-so-lucky charms in its wake.
Ah, Timothy, old pal, you've hit the nail on the head. Leprechaun, Back to Ireland is an underrated gem in, the franchise that manages to capture the same mix of humor and horror that made Leprechaun 3 so memorable. I particularly love how the film pays homage to classic Irish folklore while still maintaining its own unique twist on the Leprechaun mythos. And who could forget the iconic scene where our little green man dresses up as a Leprechaun for St. Patrick's Day and unleashes mayhem upon the unsuspecting locales? It's like something straight out of a well-crafted Irish nightmare. But in all seriousness, Leprechaun 3 has had far-reaching influence on pop culture, haven't it? From video games to board games and even theme park attractions, our little green friend continues to terrify and delight generations of fans. And who knows what new adventures he'll be up to next? Perhaps we might see him traveling back to the days of ancient Egypt, or maybe even venturing into outer space to terrorize alien civilizations. The possibilities are truly endless.
Well, Tom, old chap, for one, eagerly anticipating the next installment in this franchise-turned phenomenon. And who knows, maybe we'll even get a chance to voice some of these new characters ourselves. Stranger things have happened in Hollywood, haven't they?
Well, Timmy lad, we've reached the end of our journey through the twisted world of Leprechaun 3E, a film that defies logic and reason but somehow manages to captivate us with its cheesy charm and unapologetic campiness. From its iconic characters to its memorable quotes, this flick is sure to become a cult classic in the annals of cinema history.
Aye, Thomas, old chap, it's like an Irish version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, except instead of people throwing things at the screen, they're more likely to be tossing Guinnesses and shamrock-shaped Lucky Charms cereal bowls in sheer delight.
And what about you, Timmy? What were your favorite moments from this cinematic gem?
Well, Tom, aside from the obvious glimmering performance by our titular Leprechaun antagonist, I think my top pick would have to be the scene where no, just kidding. Seriously, though, my favorite moment was when the wisecracking cab driver, played by Billy Bob something or other Jr., delivers his legendary line, "You're lucky there's a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow, 'cause you just pissed on the whole damn thing." It's pure comedic gold, folks.
Well said, Timmy lad, and now it's time for our final thoughts and a few tidbits about our own not-so-secret lives. As we mentioned earlier, I was actually born in the USA but moved to London as a teenager. My love for art and nature led me to pursue a career as a painter, specializing in landscapes and well-endowed male nudes. When not creating masterpieces or discussing films with my best buddy Timothy here, you can find me hiking through the English countryside, sipping Earl Grey tea, and reminiscing about our days as young lads in London town.
Tom, your talent for painting is matched only by your ability to spin a good yarn. As for myself, Timothy, born August 5th, 1942 in London, England, I spent my early years listening to the BBC's historical radio shows and cooking up a storm in my grandmother's kitchen. My love for audio led me to the prestigious halls of the BBC, where I spent the next 30 years as a sound technician, working on programs like the World War II as told by the veterans and Cooking with M. Grundy's secret recipes when not listening to the sounds of history or discussing films with my longtime pal Tom. I enjoy reading historical books, cooking up a storm in my own kitchen, and occasionally tinkering with my collection of 19th century phonographs and gramophones.
And as we bid farewell to our Leprechaun 3 adventure, dear viewers, remember one thing: always wear green on stuff. Patrick's Day, never trust a Leprechaun with a pot of gold, and most importantly, comment, subscribe, and like this video. We love hearing from you, our loyal fans who share our love for cheesy horror comedies and well-crafted Irish nightmares. Until next time, sell in tea.